Hello guys, and welcome to another market review. I'm finally healthy, back again, so let's do this. We're gonna kick off by looking at Bitcoin, and I've drawn this line here as the monthly time frame to signal that the market has not been able to close above this 115k level. So in order for this market to be bullish, you would need a monthly close above this level. When we go back to the weekly time frame, you will see how this level has been pivotal. And even though we got a weekly close above this level, it didn't mean anything because the next week we closed below it. And the following weeks we had attempts at that level, but it resolved lower. So in order for this market to really scream that it's bullish, you just need to close above this level and acceptance, right? Not immediate retest like it happened here and closing below. Even though it has a big wick here, it didn't mean anything. So when we look into the daily, um, I've not been specifically bullish Bitcoin. I mean, I shared a long setup here, and price has been up since then. However, because I think the higher time frames are against us, we need a bigger reset lower. However, that doesn't mean that on the short term I can't be bullish. And prices certainly just rallied from the yearly open, and there's no reason to get bearish at this point. There wasn't any. That was the reason why I was long biased here, because there wasn't any reason. I mean, this was a horrible place to engage short. This is why I was cautious with long exposure, but on the short term, yeah, go long because short in here is just horrible. And if it's horrible, then you might just it might be worth just punting along. So we are now sitting around 95k, and if we are bearish on the medium to higher time frames, then we might have some trouble areas, right, for the bulls, and I've identified this zone here, and I think this is a key zone, and I think the market is gonna struggle closing above this because when the market tanked from the 115k into this area, there was a lot of buying here. You have these 4 daily candles, and they all have wicks that indicate absorption. So there was certainly a lot of shorts closing here, longs opening here, and the market just rallied a bit and failed to trade above, right? It immediately closes back inside, and it was the origin of another leg lower. So I do expect that the market is just gonna struggle closing here, and it might be worth looking at short setups at this level, right? Um, I don't know if this is gonna take us back all the way to the yearly open, or if maybe we're gonna close above and go higher and maybe even attempt here and reject from 115k and then go into the yearly open. I don't know, but I just think that this is a horrible place to go long, right? So you want to look for shorts here, probably. And yeah, just once we are trading at the yearly open, I think uh, you might want to rethink your bullish bias, because if we come here and trade all the way back into the yearly open, yeah, I think it could be worth taking a long just below below these lows here. There could be a bounce. But you know, once I would try not to fade the yearly open when we are at the early stages of the year, because it just tends to be very pivotal, right? So this is the play I want to look for, and especially, you know, the all-time high, I think it happened on a Sunday. Uh, well, it didn't, but you get the idea, right? This candle here, this high here was on a Sunday. So since we're trying to pick a top, right, and looking for a short setup, Bitcoin, because it's a 24/7 market, it can move on the weekends, right? And they are easier days to push price around. So those movements are lighter in volume. So if you get like price comes here and you see a spike on a Sunday, this is a great moment to engage short, because that's the one of the days where you might not want to trust price. So with yeah, Bitcoin is out of the way, and now I wanted to cover oil, because I remember I was bullish on this, but I just wanted to give it some time because there wasn't anything really constructive. Um, Prices has been in this range with a slow grind lower until it took out this low here and closed back inside the range. And the Venezuelan news barely affected price. This rally here happened, I think, a week later, so I don't think it's related to that. Um, I wanted to see a break of this trend line. However, we still needed to clear the upper bound of the range. And I think this is the ultimate pivotal level before we see oil climbing towards the 70 level again. And you can see how clean this level is. We had a lot of support there, but eventually just broke down and on the retest it just became resistance. And the latest attempt was no different. And we also closed excuse me, the following day at the mid-range. So very nasty rejection. So there's nothing really constructive here on the long side. So I'm just waiting for a daily close above this level, because until we get that, I just think this is going to remain range bound and probably drifting lower. So you have to really clear this level with a daily close. Just like this one here. Just like this one here, before the Israel conflict began last year. That is a strong daily close above previous resistance. You see all these wicks here, and this daily candle close above all of them. That is what you want to see, a daily close around 63 or the upper bounds of the 62s. And then you engage low. So until then, this is a no trade zone for me. And let's move on to the next one. Yeah, I wanted to cover Dixie. Because on the weekly, you know, this is supposed to go lower, right? We all know that the macro side is with us and Trump is going to further devalue the USD, but we are not seeing that. We are not seeing that. We also know that there's divergences between the central banks, and while the US is on a mission to keep further easing, we have the ECB shrinking the balance sheet, and AUD toying with the idea of hiking rates. So there's a clear divergence in central banks, and that's what ultimately drives the currency. But it just hasn't had any impact on price this year yet. So I would say there's nothing really bearish about the USD on the weekly time frame. However, we are approaching a key supply zone where we've rejected from a few times. So my expectation is that USD might cool off a bit next week if we trade here, but I would also like to keep in mind that this is like the fourth or fifth attempt at this zone. So how many offers are there still? You know, the more times we come into a level, the less likely it is to provide a reaction. So this is why I've mapped out this scenario with, with a quick break above and a retest. You're looking for an extension at least towards 102. So we have to be very, very mindful of what the dollar is really doing on the short term, even though we have a long-term bias, right? So now uh, let's combine that idea with what we've seen on the euro. Last week we had I think we had a bullish bias because I didn't expect price to break below the mid-range. However, that's exactly what happened. Price broke below the mid-range, and I was expecting that mid-range to hold because we had a strong impulse from there. However, the market just drifted lower slowly, and on Monday we had this strong leg, right? So I was like, okay, my read is accurate, but then the market just slowly retraced all of that, and barely gave any bounce. And however, yeah, moreover, when you look at the weekly open, which was around here, the market slightly bounced from there, but with this price action, which is just slowly drifting lower, there's no strong impulses. You really don't want to be a buyer of this level, and that's exactly what happened. Prices traded below it, and on the retest, it just kept trading lower. And what I thought was a strong zone of demand has now become a strong zone of supply, and we saw that with this Friday's candle. So now we are sitting below the mid-range on the Euro USD, and we are gonna have a weekly open around here, which is the mid-range of this percentile, right, of the range. So we have a strong supply zone here because the markets proved that to us. Strong breakdown, and on the retest we have that. So any attempt back into this zone should be sold. It's a gift for shorting. Now on the short term, I remain bearish Euro USD, and I think you want to keep in mind the weekly open as your pivot, because I think that if you get something like this, retest or deviation close below, then you engage short and you target this zone here. I don't think it's going to be that complicated to see this scenario play out. However, this zone here I'm pretty sure it's just gonna be met next week because it's a strong zone of demand. And when we look at the daily, this is a zone we already covered on previous reviews. We had this very strong daily rejection for 3 days in a row, and I was short biased and I was selling this. But the moment it flipped like this, you wanted to be a buyer of the retest because you had just flipped resistance into support, and that's exactly what happened. It's pretty clean when you see it like this. So I think EURUSD is going to find some short-term support here, right around here. So I think around this area, it might be worth having some limits and additionally looking for a long setup here. Because I'd be very surprised if this market just plunges through this and doesn't give any significant bounce back into the weekly open or something like that. Especially because when you look at the year, EURUSD has only fallen, right? There's no bounce here. It's just straight down, and it started even before the new year began. It happened late December, so I think it's time for a bounce, and this level is just gonna provide that. And you know, it might even bounce even into the mid-range, but still, I'd be cautious about getting really heavy long the euro because I really want to see the yearly open to be reclaimed before I get really bullish. So all we have for next week really is range tr range trading, and we have to be really sharp with it and read the market's intention. So quite easy. We're looking for shorts at this supply zone and a break below the weekly open and another position. Sorry. Oh my God, what did I do? Break below the weekly open, add another position and target in this zone. And from here, long, at least towards the weekly open. And if the market bounces with enough strength, it might breach the weekly open and you could look for a long setup here. We have volatility next week because we have USD relevant news from Wednesday to Friday included. So I think there might be volatility coming our way. So yeah, this is the way I view next week. So yeah, and I wanted to also mention that Euro USD is just um, yeah, if by any chance I'm just keeping an eye on this level here to be a buyer, I would gladly blindly buy this level if price came here because it's not been tested and it led to this strong impulse and we are at range lows and Euro USD would be oversold if it came here. So by this moment you will be looking at a push towards the mid-range at least if it came here. So this is a great long setup that I'm looking for, but I'm not sure if we get there. So we first have to deal with next week, but I'll just be ready in case we get that. And yeah, now I wanted to cover EURAUD because I think it's also presenting a very good setup. Um, we spoke about how we wanted to buy this gray box here, and This gray box was drawn like this because it contains the range that led to this massive move up when we move on to higher time frames. This is what that box represents. An 800 pip move to the upside. So when you have a level that significant and it's untested, you want to be paying attention whenever price comes close to there. And if you remember last week, we had limits all the way throughout this box, and we engaged long on this one. We were filled here, and we rolled along towards here, and we got out. Now, I was expecting price to behave a little bit differently and to rally already towards the yearly open because we have a flat open on the yearly open candle. And I think that increases the probability of us trading there towards the yearly open. And also, it doesn't make any fucking sense to go short around here because what the fuck are you targeting, right? And especially when this market has just sold off with this leg, you're just looking for reasons to get long, right? I think it's just so stupid to look for shorts here. So let's go to the lower time frames. So we went long here and got out of our longs here, right? And prices started distributing. And if you remember last week, I drew a box like this. And I thought, well, because I'm out of my longs here, but we've bounced from a key daily demand zone, I think it makes a lot of sense to reload my longs at this zone. And that's what I did. Okay, I went long here. And the market seemed to bounce from there properly, but it just couldn't break above. It just rains until it came again here and it just broke lower. And now let me shift this to red because this is our supply zone. And when the market came into this zone here, it acted as supply. And I do expect that this is going to hold price lower, right? It should come lower. So what do we have? Well, we have this problem. We have this barrier on the short term, but we have a medium term bullish bias because of the daily time frame, right? So what I'm looking for now is the market to daily SFP this low here, deeper into this daily demand zone, or the market to SFP this low here. And this is more extreme scenario, but I have a limit already ready for this scenario. So what I'm gonna do is just patiently wait. And if the market gives me an SFP of this daily level or this daily level, I will engage long on the daily close of that candle. And I think it's something that has a very high strike rate on EURUSD. Because look at this. SFP on the daily of this key low, boom, move up, mental move. SFP this low here, boom, another rally. And I could show you a lot of examples here. There's many. And I found myself that is a very reliable way of looking for long setups on the EURUSD. So I'm expecting the market to keep behaving that way and give me that trigger on the daily time frame. So those are the plans, and I really want to see that those daily SFPs form. If we get a reclaim of this zone here, I would think that prices is gonna go higher, but I wouldn't trust it. I don't know. If I'm going to engage with size, I'd much rather see that daily SFP form and not really trust this because I know, you know, our reasoning would say that, well, we flipped this supply zone into demand again, but then you would need, in my opinion, a close above there, but and then, your risk reward is greatly diminished if you're going to trade from here into the yearly open compared to engaging at these lows where you can invalidate yourself much better and the and you are avoiding chop and bad market conditions by engaging here, having a very, very selective setup. So that is my plan on EURUD, and I wanted to cover AUD because I think that AUD as a currency is just setting up to be one of the worst performers um, during the next weeks. And the reason for that is because I'm seeing EURUD sitting at a key daily demand zone, and I'm also seeing AUD which, if you compare with EURUSD, we've seen EURUSD just puke from the yearly open, and we've seen AUDUSD just remain range bound, right? However, there's nuances here. AUDUSD has been in this range. However, it's been compressing. It's been compressing against the yearly open, and as time has passed, it's struggled to get higher closes, and it's just been compressing at this yearly open and touching the yearly open more and more. So the more times you touch this level, the more relevance it loses. So you have to ask yourself this question, like how many bits are resting here? And if you're long here, are you not shitting your pants that price is constantly hovering around this area, right? So I think that it's setting up for AUD to perform pretty badly. And when you look at these weekly closes, it just becomes so apparent that this market has had worse closes for the last 3 weeks. So there's a lot of supply here, and with these daily closes, honestly, I think that this here is a short-term target. I think that there's a really good probability that this is the first target, but you're looking towards maybe around here. Because if EURUD starts rallying from here, right, and EURUSD goes lower as well, and you know, and the yearly open is a level that's just being cracked. It's like so many attempts here. The next time it attempts that level, it's probably just gonna sell off. And you have this inefficient move on the daily on the left hand side, and also this very one-sided move here. So it's like it's begging to unwind, and so I think AUDUSD is gonna go lower. So I really want to see a break breakdown from this level, and on the retest of the yearly open, I'm gaining short, heavily short. And first take profit would be here, and I'm basically, and I would love to see prices break these lows here and target even lower. I would be trailing my stop loss along the way, but I would like to take some profit here because I think from here is probably gonna bounce a bit, but this is the trade I want to take. Engage shorts here. And yeah, I think that's mostly it. I want to cover USDJPY to share my findings on this. So during October, we had this rally here, and the market told us, hey, this is resistance, we're going lower. So next time price came into that area, it had a similar reaction, but it didn't go lower as much. And still we had resistance here, but price broke above that level. It held, and on the retest, it bounced. You see these wicks, bullish wicks, at a price where you want to see bullish price action. And it rallied. Now, something similar happened where you have an up move, clear signs of rejection, price moves lower. Next time price comes into that area, it rejects, but not as much as the first time. And the next time it comes into that area, it breaks above. On the retest, it holds, and price rallies. So now we are probably gonna test this level again, and it should hold. If you get a close below here, you're looking towards a move towards the yearly open, in my opinion. But it should hold, right? There's no reason to think it's not gonna hold when you've also seen that very similar price action here, right? So you might be looking for a push higher. However, we have some volatility next week, and the BOJ is gonna publish the monetary policy statement. So there might be a surprise on the rate side. They might hike. I don't know. So if they hike, this is gonna shift the bet, and this is gonna go lower. And maybe if they hold steady, this is gonna be retested and it's gonna hold, and you're looking for an extension and a push towards the 160. However, I think USDJPY is kind of cooked because it's sitting at a level. The 160, I think it's a level where they've previously had to intervene the market, the currency. So yeah, you really want to be careful because we are at the same spot where we topped uh, last year, and also the 160s is close to where we had the liquidation and the carry trade unwind in 2024 during August. So yeah, not a great place to start longing USD JPY, in my opinion. It has to be very short term. So that was everything I wanted to cover for the next week of trading, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.